Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Man, it's been some weeks. I have been super quiet on the YouTube platform. Well, all platforms really, but mostly YouTube. I haven't uploaded a video in I think it's been 3 weeks now. We're gonna recap a little bit. We're not gonna recap the cards from 2 and 3 weeks ago, but we will recap last week's card just a little bit. I apologize for the inactivity. I went on that Utah deer hunt, and then after that, I've just been slammed with work and life just catches up to you. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna recap UFC 309, which I've got on my other screen here. And then of course we're gonna go through UFC Macau, which is gonna be it's a pretty low level card in all honesty, but I'm excited. It's a early fight time card, which is super fun. I'll be driving while this is airing, so I'll be able to watch it live of course, with my eyes on the road, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, we're excited. I'm excited. So, just as far as last week went, of course, we had John Jones and Stipe Miocic versus, as the main event, which we all saw John Jones with a TKO in the third round. In all honesty, really, Stipe was just a punching bag. It was pretty sad to watch. Both Mike Tyson and Stipe Miocic get beat up in the same week. I mean, not much more you can say about that, to be honest with you. John Jones, I think, is absolutely 100% ducking Tom Aspinall. I think Tom Aspinall finishes him in the first round. Of course, as the co-main, we had Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. Super good co-main event. A little bit of the fight didn't really need to happen. I'm glad it did, but didn't really need to happen. But of course, as we all know, Charles by decision, which how did that get there? I mean, if you had a bet Charles at by decision, it was at plus 1200. So I mean, there was a lot of money to be made there. How it made it to the final bell, I don't know. But man, what a fight for Charles. Charles looked phenomenal. He looked really, I mean, it's hard to gauge, I guess, because it's Chandler coming off of a 2 year layoff. So it's a little bit hard to gauge how Charles looked, if you put it into perspective. But I will say this, the Charles that we saw this previous weekend fares better against Islam Makhachev than the Charles that fought Islam, if that makes sense. So I absolutely think that Charles is next in line. I am biased, of course. He's my favorite fighter, ride or die. I'm gonna ride with Charles till the day he retires. But I think he's next in line, and I think whether Sarukian or Islam wins, if that fight happens in January, I think the Charles that we saw this most previous weekend against Michael Chandler does really, really well against both of those guys, if not beats either one of them. So that's great news. Bo Nickel, of course, you know, um, I don't know. I'm not overly impressed with Bo. When he came into the UFC, I kind of hopped on the hype. I'm a wrestler myself, so of course I've always been a Bo Nickel fan, but I don't know. It just he didn't look that great. Sure his striking has improved. Um, and yes, he won every round, but it's Paul Craig, man. If you're going 15 minutes with Paul Craig and I'll admit it wasn't a close fight, but even having it to be that close of a fight as a minus, what was he? 1200 favorite, 1500 favorite. I mean, he didn't show out, man. Yeah, he looked good. He should be proud of that win, but you should probably be knocking Paul Craig out if you're Bo Nickel. So not overly impressed. We'll see what Bo. I mean, I think about Bo and think about the top 10, top 15 guys. This whole Hamzat conversation that he's having, he can't be having anymore just because I mean, we saw his limits, his striking is levels below Hamzat's. Sure, his NCAA American wrestling is much better than Hamzat's, but his MMA wrestling, I don't think so. I think Hamzat is a better MMA wrestler. Even like I think of a guy like Fluffy Hernandez that is top 15. I mean, Fluffy Hernandez beats Bo Nickel. In all honesty, it's just hard to say. So I don't know. Bo's got a lot of work to do, a lot of learning. Yeah, he's 7 fights in his career, so he's got some learning to do for sure. Viviana Ruggiero versus Karine Silva. I had Karine Silva winning the fight before the fight happened, and then of course we all saw Viviana Ruggiero. She looked good. There was a couple of spots that she looked really good. Her jiu-jitsu looked phenomenal. She gave Karine Silva her first loss in the UFC, which is awesome for Viviani, of course. But yeah, it was a really pretty good fight. And then of course Mauricio Rufy, the minus 800 favorite against James Lontop. Man, how tough is James Lontop? The kid is freaking tough. Mauricio Rufy, he looked good, but he did look like he gassed in the third round for sure. He looked tired in that third round. So there were some questions there that arose for Mauricio Rufy, but also were answered. So uh awesome card though. And then of course, we can go over the prelims. Let me just look at the prelims here. Marcus McGee, awesome win for him over Jonathan Martinez. Jim Miller, Damon Jackson looked absolutely horrible. I had the over 2.5 in that fight, and of course, Jim Miller put a stop to that real quick. David Onama, he looked really good. But this Roberto Romero kid, that was his debut, and that was a tough debut, but man, he looked really good in the first round. Marcin Tabora, I had him winning as well before the fight started, and I figured it was going to be by submission, but the TKO finish was awesome. And then I believe that was it. Sad we lost the Chris Weidman Eric Anders fight, but I did see it just got rebooked for December 7th, which is exciting. But yeah, overall, oh, let's see, we had some early prelims. Mickey Gall, freak dude, Mickey Gall. I bet quite a bit of money on Mickey Gall, and really all it was for him was avoid getting finished in the first round, and he would have won the fight. And of course, Ramiz Brahimaj, a guy who's never recorded a knockout ever in his career, of course, finally, finishes his Mickey Gall with a knockout. So sorry, the table's shaking. So that was a little unfortunate. I mean, a Mickey Gall that just went, to war with a Basel half as the fight before, and he gets starched by Ramiz Brahimaj. I mean, come on, man. So that sucked. Basel Hafez gets starched by Oban Elliott. And then Eduardo Mora, which she was the underdog, and I had her winning. And she beat the surging. I don't know if you want to call surging, but the 3 fight win streak, Veronica Hardy. So overall, not a bad card. I went up 1.7 units this last weekend, which it isn't a great win, but it's not a loss, so I'll take it for sure. But anyway, yeah, it was a good weekend, fun fights. Uh, Tom Aspinall destroys John Jones. John Jones is old. John Jones looked slow. I thought he did look fast comparatively to Stipe, but compared to Tom Aspinall, he looked very slow. Of course, he's got his weird unorthodox John Jones style that is a little tricky to figure out, but I think Tom Aspinall could absolutely do that and quickly, quite frankly. So, but anyway, yeah, like I said, we went up 1.7 units, which was awesome. Um, both that's with the sports bet books, sports bets. So there's the sports books, which is the money lines and parlays that I do, and then also there's the DFS, which I call of course, the DFS plays. But combined of 1.7 units between the two. Looking to do better this year. Year to date we're up 80 units. I'm looking to crack 100 units this by the end of the year. So we've got 3 cards to do that. I'm excited. Looking at some good spots here in this card. Again, year to date, it's been a really good year. We're up 80 units. Hopefully, we can crack that 100 unit mark. But here we go. UFC Macau. Bear with me as I pronounce these names because, yeah, the Asian names are not very easy to pronounce. But for the first fight on the card, we have Mahashate versus Nicholas Mota. So, to me, it feels like this fight. It feels like Nicholas Mota is getting brought in here to lose. Mahashate is younger. He's a big favorite. Like I said, he's a lot younger. He hits really hard. His striking's really pretty good. He's got an inch reach advantage on Nicholas. Nicholas did go out and surprise against. Let's see, who is it against? Uh, I'm drawing a blank here. Tom Nolan. He went and finished Tom Nolan, which was a surprise, and he looked good doing it. But really, he's just got heavy hands. The striking's not terrible. Like he's overall, he's an average fighter, but I do think Mahashate is better. I think his striking's better. His clinch game isn't bad. I think he's going to be faster than Nicholas Mota. Overall, I just think he's the better fighter here. So the pick here is going to be Mahashate. I don't love any sort of betting angle on this fight. Um, Nicholas Mota, I guess he's got a shot in this fight, but I don't know. He's got to be a bigger dog for me to pull the trigger on that. At plus 175 here, uh, just not a big enough price tag for me to play on. And then on top of that, I'm not going to be betting Mahashate at minus 210. Really, it's going to take. That's got to take a nobody. I mean, a nobody for me to bet that on Mahashate. But for the pick is Mahashate, and we'll move on from there. So we got Long Zhao versus Quang Bang Lee. We got the Quang Bang back in action. I really did love his UFC debut against uh man, I'm drawing blanks here. Chris Gutierrez. Really not a bad debut for him. He took Chris Gutierrez back in the second round, and he looked slick doing it. And then of course we've got Long Zhao coming off of the Road to UFC finals where he lost a split decision. Um, I really love the plus money here on Quang Lee. The reason for that is Long Zhao. He takes a lot of guys to a decision or split decision. He likes to work the clinch. He likes the ground game. He has okay striking. Uh, but on the other side, Quang Bang Lee, I really think Quang Bang has better everything really. We saw against Chris Gutierrez, he has some really pretty good hands. In the clinch game, he can handle himself. He's really physical in the clinch game. And then when it gets to the ground, of course, we saw him take Chris Gutierrez's back really flawlessly. It was a really clean back take. So I think he's going to be better everywhere here, and where he's a plus money right now. I guess technically even money, but even at that plus money of plus 100, Bang Lee isn't a bad bet, especially where Long Zhao takes a lot of guys to split decision. Um, so yeah, where we're with that said, the pick is going to be Quang Lee, and maybe I'll get to the betting here. I would like to see, if Quang Bang gets one plus 120 or more, I could see myself pulling the trigger. But Long Zhao is a favorite. I can't quite do it there. I again I think Quang Lee is gonna be better everywhere. Not a super confident pick, but I will take Quang Lee for the pick. Moving on to Loner Kavanaugh versus Jose Ochoa. So Loner Kavanaugh, he is a Cage Warriors guy. I'm not a huge Cage Warriors guy. I do think Loner Kavanaugh is a better Cage Warriors guy than we've seen, as of late. He's got really good footwork. He's got really good hands. If you go watch his feints in his Cage Warriors fights, he's got really, really good feints. He went and starched a kid that I thought was really going to do well against him in his Dana White Contender Series fight. But he pulled Jose Ochoa here. He's fighting in the Charles do Bronx camp down in Brazil. I guess he's Peruvian, fighting out of that camp. The Diego Lima fight camp, shoot to box. So we got to take that into consideration. There's a little bit of a I don't know if I want to call it a knock on him, but where he's Peruvian fighting out of the shoot to box, it's not quite the same thing. Uh, he's got good hands as well. He's got good striking. He's 7-0, really a pretty good fighter. At plus 310, he's a big underdog, which to be quite honest, I think Loner Kavanaugh is too big of a favorite here at minus 395. That's too wide for me. I mean, I'd probably put him at minus 200, probably at the most. Minus 395 is big. He is the pick for sure. I think he's got really big, heavy hands. He's an exciting fighter. Again, his feints are really flawless. His his ability to be fast in and out of the pocket and then right back out and then right back in again is really good, which I think he'll be able to take advantage here against Jose Ochoa. With that said, Ochoa isn't a bad fighter. He does have some pretty good hands as well. Not quite the level of Loner Kavanaugh, but again, both these guys making their debut, so the pick is going to be Loner Kavanaugh. But I also would not be surprised if Jose Ochoa made this a close fight with him. And at minus 395, I don't think I'd be uh yeah, that's just too big. That's just too big of a favorite in Loner Kavanaugh making his USA debut to even look at. Maybe a Loner Kavanaugh inside the distance or depending on what the number is fight to end within the distance is a possibility to play. But overall, I'll probably steer clear from this fight. But again, the pick's going to be Loner Kavanaugh. All right, we've got Carlos Hernandez versus bear with me here. I can't even remember the guy's first name. Let's look at him here. Niam Jargle Two Mendem Barrel. Niam Jargle is what we're gonna call him. Oh boy. Let's get back to this here. Bear with me for just a second. I think I've done this before. Okay, Niam Jargle versus Carlos Hernandez. So I don't know what Carlos Hernandez has done to piss somebody off in the UFC, but he has gotten three, really four. This will be his fourth uh up and coming Asian dude. He's got Alan Nascimento, which he lost this, submission, which is fine because Alan Nascimento is a phenomenal submission artist, and if you go to the ground with him, you're most likely going to get submitted. And then he fought Tatsuro Taira, uh, which he got knocked out by, and we just saw Tatsuro Taira in a title eliminator with Brandon Royval, and he took it to the very fifth round with Brandon Royval. And then he fought Ray Saruya, who spams takedowns. And we actually saw Carlos win that third round against Ray Saruya. Now he is pulling Yum Jargle. We're gonna call him. Now he's pulling the art of the knockout. There we go. Actually, this kid's pretty exciting. The art of the knockout. It's kind of that's not a great nickname, but he is pretty exciting. He's got fast hands. He's looking for the kill as long as the fight goes. But I really think this is Carlos Hernandez's spot. I minus 200 favorite is probably warranted. It could be a little high, maybe bring him down to minus 180 or even minus 175. You probably look at playing him, but I think this is Carlos Hernandez's spot. I think instead of defensively wrestling like we've seen him do his last three fights, I think we're going to see an offensive wrestler in Carlos Hernandez in this fight. The art of the knockout has some serious power. He has some seriously fast hands. He's always looking for the KO, but he lacks some serious ground game. He's been submitted now by let's see, he got taken down 2 fights ago 9 times by a striker, I believe, and then he got submitted 1 fight ago. Let's see. And just so we're all aware, this is on. It says 8-0 there for him, but this is on the road to the UFC. So these weren't technically on their record. So he is 8-0 technically, but on the road to the UFC, he did lose. And I believe he's been on the road to the UFC twice. Uh, and like I said, he's in those most previous fights, he got submitted by a striker and he got taken down a billion times by another striker. Uh, and Carlos Hernandez, I mean, we saw against Ray Saruya, he really has he knows what he's doing on the ground. He knows he's good at jiu-jitsu. His offensive wrestling and his defensive wrestling is phenomenal now. But I think we're going to see Carlos Hernandez go in here and really expose the art of the knockouts, lack of wrestling and lack of ground game. So the pick here is going to be Carlos Hernandez. I honestly don't hate him at minus 200 either. There is always that knockout, threat from Niam Jargle, but I do think Carlos Hernandez is the rightful favorite and the pick for me on this one. Uh, maybe a Carlos Hernandez submission. I would imagine that number is not bad. If I had my book pulled up here, I'd let you know, but I bet that's not a bad play, and you could see me betting that this weekend. But again, the pick here is Carlos Hernandez. So we have Zhao Confeng versus Ming Shi. Um, we have got the itty bitty 5'2" T-Rex arms Ming Shi versus the 5'7" giant at 66 inches in reach, as opposed to Ming Shi's 60. Zhao Confeng. When I look at this fight, the only possible way I can see Ming Shi winning this fight is if she closes the distance and takes Xiao Confeng down. There's no other way for her to win this fight. But the issue that there is with that is Ming Shi has never recorded not even a UFC takedown. She has never recorded a takedown in her entire MMA career. So there's a problem. I mean, Mingxi is tiny. You'll go watch the face-offs. Zhao Confeng even looks bigger than 5'7". I mean, she's a Goliath compared to these other 115 pounders. This is the um, road to the UFC finals. Mingxi has slid by with, I mean, just barely getting split decisions and decisions. But there's just no way she wins this fight. I think the minus 300 is probably warranted for Xiao Confeng. Might be a little pricey, but she is just itty bitty. She's 60-inch reach. I mean, she literally has TRX arms. I can picture her setting up, big right and left hooks, and she's gonna whiff. I mean, Xiao Confeng is gonna see it coming from a mile away, and Ming Shi won't be able to close that distance. So the pick is going to be Zhao Confeng. She's got really good striking. She'll be able to keep the distance, and I don't think Ming Shi will be able to take her down. And like I said before, I think Ming Shi's only path to victory here is to somehow, some way get to a leg, take down Zhao Confeng, and just ride her out to a decision. But again, I don't see that happen. And then on top of that, Mingxi is relatively low volume with her striking, so it's just all around a bad matchup for Mingxi. I won't be betting this fight, especially where it's road to the UFC. I think the road to the UFC is honestly just kind of a joke. The uh, level of competition is pretty low, so I'll steer clear. I'll just lay back and watch this fight and see what happens. But the pick is going to be Zhao Confeng, hands down. So we have our second road to the UFC finals with Kiru Sahota and Dong Hoon Choi. This is a good fight. It's really not a bad fight. Both these guys are exciting. Both these guys have really good striking. Kiru Sahota is huge for flyweight. He's 5'10" as opposed to Dong Hoon Choi's 5'5". Um, and I got to be honest with you, I love Kiru. I love Kiru at plus 155, or sorry, plus 130. At plus money, I think I mean, he's going to keep this fight close. Dong Hoon Choi is not, I mean, he's not levels above this guy. These guys are very, very similar as far as their abilities in MMA. I think Kiru is going to keep it close. He's got really good striking. He's able to keep the distance, and that's probably going to be his key to victory. Is he's got to be able to manage the distance throughout the whole fight. Keep his range. I mean, he's 7.5 inches longer with his arms. I mean, he's got a 7.5 inch reach advantage. If he can keep the distance, pick him apart on the outside, and keep Dong Hoon Choi, on the outside, he'll be able to win this fight. And I do think he'll be able to do that. I think Dong Hoon Choi, of course, he's got to get inside, clinch work, dirty boxing, those kinds of things. But Kiru keeps all of his fights close, and I think where he's able to do that at plus 130, I think he's got to be the pick for me. So yeah, Kiru Sahota is the pick. I think he'll be the road to the UFC champion, and at plus 130, if that grows, I'll keep it on my eye on that. I may be laying some money on that. So our third and final, thank goodness, our third and final road to the UFC final. Three low level fights right in a row. We have Su Young Yu and Baljin Genesuli. We are going to see the ultimate wrestling tournament here. Su Young Yu spams takedowns. That's all he does is he spams takedowns. He has zero volume with his striking. And then Baljin Genesuli is pretty much the same way. He doesn't shoot as many takedowns, but he's a submission artist. He loves the ground. So I think we're going to see this fight play out on the feet the whole time and as for as long as it lasts. I think they both have submission threats. But if I got to be honest, if I was Su Young Yu, I would try and keep this on the feet. I think he's got better striking. I think his dirty boxing is good. His clinch work is good. So if he can keep it on the feet, maybe just grind out clinch work on the fence, I think he's got a real shot at winning this. As far as Baljin Genesuli goes, I think his striking is horrible. Uh, Comparatively, anyway. Su Young Yu is his striking is bad as well, but I think Baljin Genesuli's is worse. I think his pretty much his only path to victory here is to find a submission. maybe have some top work, uh some takedowns of his own, right on top of Su Young Yu. If he can't find the submission, maybe win a decision that way. But I think Su Young Yu's offensive and defensive wrestling is better than Baojin's. So really, the only way I think Baojin wins this fight is to find a submission off of his back, um, and maybe hit a sweep, take his back, find a submission that way. But the pick is going to be Su Young Yu, and I think, yeah, not very confident in this one, to be quite honest with you. Uh, Probably, I definitely will not be betting it. The pick will be Su Young Yu. Just watch out for a submission on both sides, probably. I would imagine. Not overly excited for this fight, but it is what it is, and we'll be watching it. So there you go. Su Young Yu is the pick. Okay, we have no idea why we have this, but we have Ozzy Diaz coming in against Ming Yang Zhang. Probably pronounced Zhang, but we're gonna call him Zhang. The Mountain Tiger. That's a pretty cool nickname. I don't know why Ozzy Diaz is even in the UFC. He lost to Joe Pyfer on Dana White Contender Series in the second round, and then he hasn't fought in 2 years, and the UFC's like, okay, come and fight. So I think this is a setup for Ozzy Diaz to lose. He does have hands. He's got some big hands, some relatively big power, but I think the Mountain Tiger is just better all around. He's got better footwork, better striking. Um, the distance management, I just don't think it's going to be there for Ozzy Diaz. He's going to probably just want to throw haymakers and throw bombs, and if he can land one, then good on him. I do think Ming Yang Zhang is definitely the better fighter all around. In all honesty, I don't have much to say about this fight. Steer clear betting perspective because Ozzy Diaz could find a KO. So probably don't parlay Ming Yang Zhang. Um, yeah, overall pretty low level. But the pick is Ming Yang Zhang. Okay, to some actual good fights. I think this is probably, man, second to the main event. This is probably the fight I'm excited for. Volkan Oezdemir versus Carlos Carlos Olberg. I actually have not been a Volkan Oezdemir guy, really until just recently. I did pick him to. Sorry guys, I'm bleeding. It's distracting me. All right, there we go. I did pick him to beat Johnny Walker because Johnny Walker's chinny. And then his Bogdan Guskov submission win was a good win. Really, he's only losing to the good guys. I mean, he's losing to Yuri Prochazka. He's losing to, back in the day, Daniel Cormier. He's losing to Magomed Ankalaev. He's losing to really good guys, and he carries some big power. Carlos Olberg, he's probably the one that the UFC wants to win here, but he's just as old as Volkan. I mean, he's 34, as opposed to Volkan Oezdemir's 35. Carlos Olberg, he's on a 6 fight win streak, but if you look into that win streak, I mean, his best win is Alonzo Menifield, and Alonzo Menifield ran across the cage and basically asked the dude to hit him in the face. So I don't know. At a minus 260 favorite for Carlos Olberg is pretty crazy, to be honest with you. And I don't see him finishing Volkan maybe in the first round, but outside of the first round at plus 210, I think Volkan is going to make this fight really close. Uh, and I think it's probably going to be a split decision win for Carlos Olberg, if I had to guess. It's going to be close. It's going to be a close fight. Volkan Oezdemir has big power. He's got really good hands. He's not quite as fast as Carlos. He's probably not quite as powerful as Carlos as well. And Olberg's footwork is probably better as well. So the pick is probably Carlos here. But man, I could at plus 210. I would not mind laying some money on him because he could for sure find the finish here. And the later this fight goes, I mean, Carlos Olberg, we've seen him gassed in the third round before. So maybe Carlos comes out hesitant, doesn't want to death gas, and Volkan just takes storm and finds some confidence and wins 29-28. It's very possible here. I think he's going to keep this close. So if you've got a sports book that's going to give you like a plus 3.5, bet that number's, well, depending on what that number is, you'd probably be looking pretty good to find a plus 3.5 on Volkan Oezdemir, and even, yeah, at plus 210. That's hard not to lay some money on him. The pick will be Carlos, but you'll probably find me at the cash counter laying some money on Volkan Oezdemir. We have Wang Gang, Tong Wang Gang. She came out and flatlined her opponent last fight in her UFC debut. She is fighting Gabriela Fernandez, and she is too big of a favorite. Minus 650 in her second UFC fight. I mean, I get it. She's a great kickboxer and all those things, but she has six UFC fights. She gone two of them to a decision, two of them by knockout, and two of them by submission. So I mean, I don't know. Minus 650 just seems really, really pricey on a fighter making their second fight in the UFC. Gabrielle Fernandez, she's a brute, kind of. She's big, strong, not super fast with her striking, but how holds some serious power. Tong Wing will have better footwork. Tong Wing will have uh faster hands, better feints, better kicks. But with that said, Gabriella could really make this fight close. There has not been a UFC knockout with because this week they'll be using the new gloves, the ones that are not creating knockouts. I don't know what you want to call them, the new old gloves because they switched last week. We'll just stick with the new gloves. Yeah, we'll call them the new gloves. The old gloves are the ones with all the knockouts. How about let's call it that. So this week they'll have the new gloves because they don't have enough for fight nights, which I don't know if I believe. But that's a story for a different day. I don't know. Maybe Kong Wing can. Yeah, maybe she can knock her out. I don't think so. I think this is going to go to a decision. I think Gabriela Fernandez, she's never been finished. She's really tough. She's got heavy hands. I think she can make this fight close. I think Kong Wing will win. It'll probably be by decision. But at minus 650, I'm just shocked that she's that big of a favorite. And I wouldn't lay minus 650 on her, but with that said, I also probably wouldn't lay plus four. I don't know, plus 470 is a lot, but it's women's MMA, and Wang is probably being set up here for a win. She's got the whole Valentina Shevchenko win in kickboxing, so there's that to base it off of. So the pick is going to be Kong Wang. I'm going to steer clear from this fight betting wise overall. I mean, there could be a finish. I don't know if I really see it. So we're probably going to go with Kong Wang by decision. But yeah, not impressed with this fight. Not really excited for it either. So the featured bout, we have Tanong Song versus Muslim Salikov. I wish I wish I could take Kanong Song here at plus 140. I just can't trust the guy though. I mean, he's facing a 6,900-year-old Muslim Salikov who barely got a split decision win against Santiago Ponzinibbio his last fight out, even though I mean, I scored that fight for Santiago. And Kenan Song, he's just not trustworthy. I mean, let's look at his most previous fights. Yeah, so he beat Ricky Glenn, which wasn't super impressive. I mean, it's a good win, but not overly impressive, to be quite frank. Kevin Jusset beat the living crap out of him. And then Ronaldo Bedoya, he also I guess he won that fight, which isn't a bad win. Uh, but I mean, to get landed on how many significant strikes did Kevin Jusset win? I mean, he landed what 100 and something, a lot. I'd have to look later, but he landed a lot. He made him look silly, and that's not a good look for Song Kanong because Kevin Jusset isn't the most brilliant fighter in the world. And then of course he lost to Ian Machado Gary before that. Max Griffin before that, he lost. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't quite trust this guy. The way he went out against Kevin Jusset and didn't look very good. Um, he did win against Ricky Glenn, which is not a bad win. But I don't know. I just got a weird feeling about Kanan Song this week. So the pick's going to be Muslim Salikov. Muslim, he has heavy power. His of course, they call him Kung Fu King, his which is legit. His Kung Fu's really good. Uh, and on top of that, the Kung Fu King has never lost an MMA fight in China. So, uh, with that said, the pick's going to be Muslim Salikov. I'll steer clear, like a long ways away from betting this fight. There's no way I'm going to bet it. So yeah, the pick will be Muslim. I don't have much to say about Song Kanong. He's just not a trustworthy fighter anymore. Moving on. It looks like the baby shark is growing as a favorite. I want to say she started off as plus 160. We've got Xiaonan Yan Xiaonan versus Tabitha Ricci. And when this fight got announced, my instant reaction was, oh yeah, Yan is going to starch Tabitha. But the more I looked into it, I just don't think that's the case anymore. Um, Tabitha Ricci has had some very questionable split decisions go her way the last three or four fights. I thought she lost to Angela Hill. I thought she lost to not Raquel, um, Tiny Tornado Pennington, Tisha Tisha Pennington. I thought she lost that fight. Both split decisions that went her way. The reason these are going her way is she's just active. She got outstruck by Tisha Pennington like 90 to 54, but she just looked active and somehow got the nod. Then on top of that, she landed a lot of strikes on Angela Hill, but she's just active. So I don't know. Yeah, Yan Shannon, her takedown defense and really her defensive and offensive wrestling has been exposed in multiple ways, multiple times. I mean, Carla Esparza, who can't TKO anyone, TKO'd Yan Shannon with soft, petty little elbows. And then, of course, Yan Xiaonan went out against in her last fight against Zhang Weili and got exposed again in the wrestling department. I think Tabitha is going to be able to to close the distance, get Yan Xiaonan down, and probably ride out a decision here. And if this fight's going to a decision, I know it's in China. I'm probably going to want to be on the Tabitha Ricci side. So the pick here is going to be Tabitha Ricci. She's got to be careful with the counters from Yan. Uh, just like Jessica Andrade, she the way that Yan Xiaonan knocked out Jessica Andrade, Tabitha Ricci has a real shot at getting knocked out that way because she does blitz in with weird looking strikes sometimes. But if she can safely close the distance and get Xiaonan to the ground which I think she'll be able to, plus 170, man. I'm I'm definitely going to be laying some money on that. Plus 170 is a good price tag for a girl that wins a lot of split decisions. So the pick here is going to be Tabitha. Her game plan has got to be to go in and just have a lot of out volume Yan Xiaonan, put a pace on her because Yan did gas and will gas and will slow down. She can do that and of course find her takedowns. She'll win this fight. So I'm going to take the baby shark here as the plus 170 underdog. The main event, Piotr Yan versus Davison Figueredo. So it really a good fight, not a bad fight at all. I think Davison has kind of been a fraud in the bantamweight division a little bit. I mean, Rob Font, no takedown defense at all, and he's 40 years old or close to it. Cody Garbrandt was piecing Davison Figueredo up in the first round, and then got taken down and submitted in the second. And then, of course, his most recent win against Marlon Vera. I don't think Marlon's very good. I mean, yeah, he's a good fighter, but he loses every single first round of every fight he ever fights. He just came off the beating of his life against Sean O'Malley, and he just never got going. He's just a slow fighter, he he is okay with losing those rounds. So I just think Davison's been a little bit of a fraud in this division. And then of course we've got Piotr Jan, who has basically only fought champions the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, you've got Aljo, and then you've got Sandhagen, who it wasn't a champion, but a really good fighter. And then Aljo again. And then after that, you got Sean O'Malley, who's a champion. Merab Dvalishvili, champion. I mean, the dude's just been fighting champion. Jose Aldo, champion. He's just been fighting champions for the last 4 or 5 years. Uh, and I think he's the better man here. At minus 340, he's probably a little bit too high of a favorite. Probably price him more towards the 270 range, 260 range. But I think with a 5 round fight, he's going to look good. He's probably going to lose the first round at a pretty high clip, but I would imagine his rate to win rounds 4 and 5, and if not find a finish in rounds 4 and 5, he'll be able to. He'll be. I mean, it's a high clip for him to win those rounds. His boxing is phenomenal. He's only 31 years old. He's going to be faster than Davison. His takedown defense is phenomenal. He's at 85% takedown defense. Davison probably, I mean, I imagine if him going into this fight, he wants to take down Piotr Jan, because why wouldn't he? His boxing isn't going to be as good as Piotr's, and he's got slower hands. I don't think his power is carried over as well as everyone thinks it has. I think Piotr's going to piece him up, stuff the takedowns, piece him up again, stuff more takedowns, and if not, find a finish late, 4 and 5, to be honest. Um, but yeah, I think Piotr Jan's the pick here, and maybe a Piotr Jan by decision. I want to say I looked at that number earlier. It was plus 140 or plus 130, so that's not a bad play. But I think Piotr Jan is a really really bad matchup for Davison Figueredo, just because I mean, like I said, 85% takedown, phenomenal boxing, high volume, huge power, super tricky to figure out. And what Piotr Jan does is he takes the first round of every fight. He makes reads and he downloads those reads, and he figures out a guy in a very um step by step process, very intricately. He breaks down a guy, and he is very good at that. And I think he'll be able to break down Davison Figueroa pretty quickly. To be quite frank, he'll probably lose the first round, like I said, but rounds 2 through 4 are going to be all Piotr Jan. So anyway, that's going to be the pick for me. Stay tuned on my Instagram, TikTok, uh, Facebook at Saucy Picks MMA. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll give you all my free as many bets as I can this week on my Instagram. I've got some pretty funny parlays coming. We're gonna start a new $1 parlay to see if we can't turn it into, a couple $1,000 or something crazy like that. And then on top of that, yeah, we got a few more things coming down the pipe that are gonna be it's gonna be fun. We're gonna start a couple new series on my Instagram. So yeah, like, subscribe, go follow me on all my pages, and thanks for watching.